welcome everyone to our pre-Monday Mojo. That's right, we're doing something a little bit differently today. We are having our original, regular 6 p.m. Central Time Monday Mojo tonight with me and Olivia Vo. That's right, Olivia is coming back for this special presentation because it's near and dear to her heart. But we wanted to have several pre interviews for pre Monday Mojo because I have so many friends that are writers. And it's so important for us to know that it's okay to write, no matter the circumstance, no matter how eager or not eager that we are, or maybe we learn in a different way. So today we are specifically talking about National Encourage a Young Writer. And what a day, right? The Monday after Easter holidays, perfect time for this occasion. And I'm bringing up another brilliant author. And she's written so much and she does so many interviews. And she's just a spectacular lady, Sherri Leopold. And she is excited to be here with us and can't wait for me to throw her under the bus and ask her questions. Hello, Sherri.
Hello. And yes, I just can't wait because being under the bus is the best place if it's with you, Madonna.
You know what? I wanted to do this to everyone today that I'm interviewing because I feel like it comes from your heart, mind, body, and soul. There's no thought to this. It's what comes to you naturally. And what came to you when I first said National Encourage a Young Writer? What was your first thought, Sherri?
I think my first thought was like, I don't know that that was done for me. I don't know that I was encouraged as a young person, except like when it came to school, but that felt different because that was like what I had to do. But I don't know that I was ever encouraged outside of school just to write for self-expression. So that is what I think kind of occurred to me is like we need more of that from people who are outside of just our teacher realm or outside of the school setting.
You know what? I think you're so right. And Helen and I touched on this a little bit, kind of in the same scenario that you are this morning early, because she brought up, school and then childhood, and Mila did too, but a little bit differently. Is that I wasn't. I don't remember. I'm not going to say I wasn't. I don't remember being influenced to write. Yes, to write my name, to write a paragraph, copy this word to this page, and stay in these lines. But as far as I like the word that you used, expression, when you said that. I don't remember being taught to write my expressions out solely on what I think. Later on, we were able to write stories. I do remember that. Look at this picture and write a story about it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't really what you and I are talking about when it comes to today in the environment. And you're right, teachers can't do it all.
Right. And I think a really good tool, we hear a lot about journaling and things now, but I think that in and of itself is a great way to release frustration, pent up emotions, express yourself without judgment because you're simply writing it in a piece of paper for yourself. So you can write anything that comes to your mind. Nobody's judging your grammar or your sentence structure or if you've left a dangling participle or whatever, right? Like you get to just be you, right? And show up as, as yourself in your own writing. And I don't think we're encouraged enough to do that. And that's really something I think that we need to be doing with our young people so that they really truly are able to tap into that creative spot, but also that spot where they can release their inner thoughts and their inner emotions.
And even to add on to that, I think even when we're angered, it's great to write. and not and I want you guys to know, everyone that's listening, please comment. Let us know you're listening. If you're listening on the recording, let us know. Sherri and I will comment back. We want it to grow. We want everyone to know, because I think young and old can learn from this. I did not learn that it was okay for me to write until last year. And I am not young anymore because
Well, you're young at heart.
I am
I
young at heart. And writing has taught me that it's okay that I learned differently than maybe others did. I was a little bit slower at learning. I didn't catch on as fast as some others. But once I had it forever. There's no forgetting it.
yeah.
We learn differently at different paces in different areas in our life. And I, through a great friend of Olivia Vo, kind of knew my story from the past. And she said, you must start writing. And she introduced me to Mila. And and I wrote 3 different chapters last year alone, and I felt great. But I was never taught to do that as a child. And when I was older, I wanted to write. And then I thought, oh, I don't know how to write. I don't know. I still do not know all of my sentence structure. Like you said, your daily participle or your adjectives and adverbs. And you know what? I think it's even changed over time.
Yeah, and the reality is that is not what someone remembers when you share your story, LaDonna. Like, I think, people think it, in their minds they have to have it done a certain way, but I always say, you cannot tell your story wrong. Who you are, how you show up in the world, and what's important to you, and your life and your experiences can only be told with your voice. Simply not a wrong way to do it. And also, if I mean, you can listen, you can pay people. If your grammar is, wonky or that's not your strong suit, you can always pay somebody to proof it and help edit it and things like that. What won't change is your voice and your story, and every word of it counts because each person's story and existence matters and counts. And I always say, someone's waiting for your story, for inspiration, for the motivation to do something, to accomplish something, to know that they can too. There's somebody always waiting for your words.
Absolutely. And you know what, Sherri? I think even if you're writing as a child, even if it's one paragraph that expresses how your outlook, how you're feeling about yourself or something, can help you as you write it, and it could help someone else either today or tomorrow. And I
Yeah.
really learned that through my experience of just living.
It's interesting because it's actually been through the process of writing in books. I have 12 total. I still in my mind am like, am I a writer? I guess I am. It's just like it's one of those things where you don't, like you said, you don't necessarily see yourself as that, but I am a storyteller. I think I would articulate it that way. But also, I am a writer, right? Because I did write those things. It's just that I think in our mind, intellectually, because of school, we think writers are people who write books and it's only a certain way. And the landscape of writing and being a writer has changed. Now there are blog writers. Now there are people who write specifically just write short articles. There are essay writers, there are poetry writers. There's so many different varieties of writing. I think everyone is a writer in some way. It's just a matter of finding what sort of speaks to you and sits on you well. Even if it's just journaling and it's only ever going to be for you, I think you're still a writer. You're writing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. So I have another phrase for you. Now blank out your mind and let's see what comes next. When I read to you, most children are natural storytellers. What comes to mind, Sherri?
I immediately thought 100% accurate. They are. They are 100% a storyteller.
Absolutely. If you were talking to your younger self and you heard that and you wanted to run with it, how do you think that you would do differently now as your younger self than what you did?
I think I might have realized that my voice mattered a little bit earlier than I did. I always say that, and this was I was going to say this earlier. Like books are and writing my story is actually how in just the last probably 2 years I've come to be able to talk about some of the experiences that I've had in a way that I never shared before. I've just never said anything about. I mean, I grew up in a home with domestic violence. I just never talked about it. And it wasn't that I was ashamed of it. It just never occurred to me that sharing that story could help somebody else. And it's sort of come to the surface for me to realize that, everything I've accomplished has been a direct result of going through that and that journey, and that journey is able to inspire someone. So I think if I was thinking about myself in a younger framework, I think I would just say to speak up sooner, that my voice always mattered to say.
I would not disagree with you at all. I came from a similar background with domestic violence, sexual violent home, and I was never able to talk about it. And I remember the very first time I went to counseling, which I was much older. And because the way I was raised, you weren't supposed to talk about stuff like
Yeah.
that. What happened at home stayed at home. Everyone minded their own business, even though they knew it was going on. Nobody wanted to get involved.
Yep.
Oh, baloney, baloney, baloney. My younger self is like, whoo, I would have spoke louder and deeper, and I would have wrote my chapter a lot sooner. But again, I was taught not. It's hard to reteach your brain something once it's molded, but you can, and you will respect yourself more, right? You
Yeah,
feel like
about
you,
1,000%. I always say that's my favorite hashtag is hashtag make good choices. We
yes,
all have a choice, LaDonna. We choose
absolutely,
whether we tell ourselves that that's going to be hard. I choose not to tell myself it's going to be hard. I choose to say I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want.
absolutely.
That's my choice.
You could have asked me 10 years ago, will I know Sherri? Will I be interviewing people? Will I be a writer? Absolutely not. But
That's right.
here I am today.
That's right, because you made
I
the choice,
changed the
right?
way I thought.
That's
And you know what? I wanted to keep learning and teaching and just let the world know that my voice matters. I matter, and
And you know
I
what?
have stories.
The first thing it has to matter, where it has to matter, LaDonna, is you. It has to matter to you. And I think if you can't ever get to that self-worth space to say, you know what, my story matters and it matters to me most and first, it's hard to share. And I think that's one of the things that is an inhibiting factor, not just for young writers, right? But also for older you get, you think you talk yourself out of it, right? Like instead of talking yourself into it, which is a choice, it's a choice. Every day is a choice. You can say I couldn't do it, I couldn't do it, but tomorrow or today you can wake up and say I can do it, and guess what? You're going to be able to, because it's your choice.
Absolutely. And too, I think it matters. You know how you're taught choose your friends wisely, don't hang around with this crowd or don't hang around with this crowd. But you know what? It's still kind of the same. It's about who you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with positive, outgoing, reflective people, you you kind of mold to that. If you are, it's just the way we are, no matter what age we are.
100%. If you're hanging out with an entire group of people who have written 12 books and they have TV shows and they're interviewing people and they're whatever, you start to think, well, maybe I can do that. See, like it really does matter who you spend your time with. And if people are out for themselves or whether they're out to help and support their network, everywhere you place yourself matters, right? And you will be a reflection of whoever you're surrounding yourself with. Another hashtag, make good choices.
Exactly. I love that because when I was raising my children, they used to just cringe because I would drop them off at the schoolhouse sidewalk and I would say, go make good choices.
Yep.
And when they made bad choices, the next day I would say, go make better choices than yesterday.
Yeah, and every day is a new day. I think that's, the interesting thing that I find, LaDonna, is that when we talk about choices, there is a very huge fear that people have that what if I make the wrong choice? And I always say, listen, you don't get one. Like you get an infinite number. The minute you make a choice, like you said, do you want to do this? I said, yes. I had 1,000 more choices I could make, right? Like if I don't have to sweat and go, oh, should I? Listen, just make the choice. Just make a choice. You're going to get another one. And you might say, like you said, oh, that was not the best choice. But guess what? You get to course correct always. There's nothing, almost nothing, unless it kills you. Like, right? Like
No,
you
we
get to
all
keep
make
continually making choices.
we
If you make a
all
bad
make
one, make a
some
better
bad
one.
choices, right? We
Yes.
all do some things. Oh my gosh, why did I do that?
Yes.
Don't be embarrassed unless you didn't learn from it and go recreate it. That's what I always taught my children. And I teach my grandchildren now. Even though my children are adults, I still them goes, oh mom, I can't believe I did that. Why not? We're all human and we all make some choices that we think, oh my gosh, why did we do that? Well, go recreate it and
Yes, and
learn
you
from
know what?
it.
Sometimes you learn by making mistakes. So,
Absolutely.
one of my favorite books, speaking of writing, one of my favorite books is Fail Forward by John Maxwell. I love that book. I've listened to it on audio probably 5 times. We have to frame failure and making those bad choices like, "Oh, why did I do that?" We have to frame that differently, like, what do you learn from that? You fail forward. You don't fail and fall apart. You fail forward and you go, "Oh, I'm not going to do that again." Like that's literally what making mistakes and or bad choices is all about. It's a learning experience. Nobody gets through this life, LaDonna, by making the 100% right choice every time and every moment their entire life. They don't. We don't. That's not how we learn, first off.
No,
But
no,
it's impossible. You can't do it.
absolutely. And you know what? And I think if I was, I hope that I hope someone will relay this conversation to a teen, a preteen, a young adult, even younger, that it's okay if you write something and it's not perfection, because as long as it's perfect to you, for your thoughts, that's really all that matters at this point. And you can grow with it, grow upon
Yes.
it, grow above it. And that's what I've learned going back to the first time I went to therapy about my childhood when I was an adult, is that my fear was that I would not be a good parent. So I was a parent, took parenting classes, and there wasn't a lot back then in the 80s. There was no get online and figure it out. No, you really had to go to a class or go check out a book in the library, or you know. But when I went and seen my first therapist about it, the first thing they said is write a letter about it. You don't have to give it to anyone, but write a letter. So see, write it down. And
Yes.
then I crumbled it up, and that's what they suggest. So again, it's all about the writing. It will make you feel better. You will achieve some of that brain fog out of there. I know for me, I did. And then even for a child, if you've had a bad day at school, write it down. maybe there's something different that you can do tomorrow so it's not the same day as it was today. I don't know.
Yeah, and you can make an emotional deposit if it was something that was stressful or frustrating or whatever. You can make that emotional deposit with those words onto the paper, and then it gets to go with that, and you get to separate it from yourself. And it's the power of writing, right? I mean, it's and I think it's true even in the chapters that I've done where I said I've talked about that. I've wrapped my head around that those places in my life where I chose to look at that circumstance as growth points. And you know I could have written it maybe earlier and back then. I obviously have better adult eyes looking at it, but I think I want to share something. When you were speaking about like writing it, we do change every day. That's the one constant that we have is change, right? And I think the story that you might have written about what was going on in your life at 7 and at 17 and 27 and 57, like I am, like it's going to be different, and your words you use to explain it would be different, right? So I think that there has to be a really great understanding that whatever way you write it in that moment is exactly the way it is meant to be in that moment. Now, I look at that because I think this is one of the things that keeps people from writing in general, is like they don't want to do it wrong, or they keep correcting it. And because I paint, this is there's times like I paint and I draw, I have to walk away from it or I'll keep changing it and trying to fix it and make it better. And at some point you just need to write it, dump it, leave it, and go, that was me in that moment. If you go look at it 6 months from now, you'd rewrite some things. 6 years, you'd rewrite more. It's just how we are. And that's part of our evolution and our growth. Just know that whenever you write, whether you're 6 or whether you're 60, however you write it in that moment is exactly the way it should be.
Oh, I believe it. I understand that and I love that. And I love that emotional deposit. I love those words that you used. And it is so true. And you know what? Just write. And that's my thing. Just start. Just start. Start somewhere. It doesn't matter where, whatever story that relates to you. If it's the pink bird that's on your windowsill, if you want to write about it, write about it. If it's a great day at school or a great day at the playground or a great day at dinner with mom and dad, whatever it is, write. If you want to write, write. Don't worry about is it perfect for someone else. Just let it be perfect for you at that moment, like Sherri said, at that moment.
Yep.
But let it be perfect for you because that's really what it's all about.
And I think I would add to that, LaDonna, is if somebody even a young child can do this, is I think if I had to do it over as a parent, I think one of the things I probably would have had my children do that I did not do is I would have had them keeping their own gratitude journal. Even when they were young, I don't care if they're thankful for the sun or animal crackers or whatever it is, like that they would have gotten in the habit of having gratitude each day for like three things. I would have started that practice with them, younger, because I think, my thought process is that gratitude and anxiety or anxiousness, all those, the negative emotions, they can't live comfortably when in gratitude. Like you can't have both at the same time. You can't be like super nervous about something and grateful for something. So when you spend your time in gratitude, it reigns supreme over your entire life, your emotions, everything. So I would have started that process. So if somebody said, where do I start with my child? That's where I'd start. I'd start with helping them, even if they can't write themselves, ask them what they're grateful for today,
I love that.
even if it's a
I
toy
love
truck.
that. And you know what? One thing we talked about earlier with one of the other writers is that I wished I would have known today, back when I was raising my own children, I would have done a few things a little differently. just, about expressing them to write more or write down their thoughts or, things like that. But you know what? Again, I hope that even as adults, I'm still teaching them. And
A
you know what? They teach me some things too.
100%. I think it's you're always going to be that person that they look to. And I think when you are a lifelong learner like we are, and writers are going to always be lifelong learners because they're probably always going to be reading as well. And I think that's, I feel really confident I have instilled that in my children, that lifelong learning. They all write, but mostly I think it's for their jobs. I
Right.
would love to see them, kind of merge a little bit into that writing for fun and enjoyment side of it. That's why I said I kind of wish I had done that gratitude exercise with them when they were little. I think they're all very grateful, but I think it would have connected the brain to the hand. There is definitely some brain science behind like what layers in when you write it as opposed to just reading it or typing it on a computer. It's not the same.
Exactly.
Recommend the handwriting.
Yes,
Well.
yes, me too. Okay, for the last phrase I have for you, Sherry, is wipe out the mind. Children's vivid sense of imagination and creativity allows them to come up with extraordinary stories. What's your first thought on that?
You know what I think? My first thought was, oh, adults just lose that. Like we unfortunately it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I still think it's fun. And we've done this on family occasions where we'll just like tell a sentence and then the next person has to add a sentence. So we make this running story like that we're just telling,
Hmm.
but it's a really fun way to tap that creativity that I think we sometimes lose as adults. But like I'll do that, with my grandkids. I'll start a story and say, what do you think you should do next? So they will add a sentence to it. And I only have one that's old enough to do that right now, but and she just thinks that's hilarious, like that we do that, and I think it's a really good, fun exercise for parents with young children to keep that imagination alive, but also help stimulate the adult's imagination, which sometimes gets a little stifled with being an adult and all the adult responsibilities. Why I love the adult coloring books, because it taps my creativity. I colored this weekend. I'm like,
And you know what? Would we imagine 20 years ago there would be such a thing as adult coloring book? Look how much life has changed.
yep.
I mean, we're always changing, and I think for the children, it's the same thing. And with that, I'm going to we're going to move on just a little bit farther, and then we'll come back in case you think of one last thing that you may want to add to this segment. Okay, hold on just a second, Sherry. All right, I just want to remind everyone just a few other little details, and then Sherry and I are going to be right back with you in case, and we're going to ask Sherry if there's any last minute thing that she wants to tell the young writer. All right, Sherry, did you think of anything else that you want to say before we go today?
I think what I'd like to say is, sparking that creativity and imagination and that ability to write is layered in very well by a parent. So if you're a parent or a grandparent, regardless, just encourage your child to put those patterns in place when they're young, they'll have a lifetime of writing and learning and loving to embrace their imagination if they're just shown how when they're young.
Perfect, Sherri. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And again, if you're listening to us live or on recording, just ask your questions, comments. Let us know. We will get back to you, and have a beautiful rest of your day and week. Thank you, Sherri.
Thank